Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this virtual visit to the state of California by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Haakon of Norway. The visit will start with Lieutenant Governor Miss Eleni Kunalakis welcoming His Royal Highness and Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs Miss Ine Eriksen Søreide to a conversation about the partnership between California and Norway. But first, please welcome to the stage the Governor of the State of California, Mr. Gavin Newsom, followed by the Norwegian Ambassador to the United States of America, Miss Anniken Krutnes. Governor, the floor is yours.
Hi, it's Governor Gavin Newsom, and I'm thrilled to welcome His Royal Highness Crown Prince Haakon and this impressive government and business delegation to the state of California. And I certainly hope to welcome you all here to California in person very, very soon. I appreciate, more importantly, the opportunity to just address you today and express my thanks and my gratitude for your partnership with our state. Because now more than ever, especially after this last year, we recognize the importance of more collaboration, particularly international collaboration, not just tackling the issues of COVID, but climate change. Just require a different level of partnership at all levels of government. And so I want to just thank our Norwegian colleagues and friends for not only those partnerships, but also your global leadership. I would like to say and stipulate, at least, that California and Norway, we have a lot in common, particularly in terms of our values and our priorities, including developing and using new technologies to move us towards a more inclusive and sustainable future. And that's certainly evident in Norway's leadership. And boy, have you demonstrated real leadership on zero-emission vehicle deployment. I just want to congratulate you. It's a remarkable accomplishment, becoming the first country in the world where the sale of electric cars has overtaken those powered by gas. By the way, we have plans to catch up very, very soon. And because of those plans and because we share similar goals and values, as well as aggressive and audacious plans to meet them, it's not an understatement to say, at least in our country, as California goes, so goes the nation, at least the United States. So we're committed, truly committed, not only to advance the cause of low-carbon green growth for 40 million people in our state, but advancing that for the rest of our country. And we say that in the context of not just advancing environmental stewardship for environmental purposes, but to advancing the cause of justice, environmental justice, as we grow our economy with high-quality jobs at the same time. Look, we know that our progress in developing and implementing new green technologies to support our renewable energy goals and our efforts to transition to zero-emission vehicles will be dependent on something else that's profoundly important, and that's unparalleled talent and a talent pool that requires skilled and diverse workforce. And I appreciate Norwegian businesses are looking at opportunities here in the state of California to gain access to what I say humbly is one of the highest quality workforces anywhere in not just the United States, but anywhere in the world. And I'm glad you'll have a chance to visit, as a proof point of that conveyor belt for talent, to visit one of our world's preeminent universities here in Northern California, UC Berkeley, as well as Stanford University. And certainly I don't need to tell His Royal Highness about the unique and world-class institution that is UC Berkeley, as we are proud to have him as an alum. You know, that commitment to education, that commitment to upward mobility is another value I know we share with our friends from Norway. And we all recognize that this transition, this global transition to a more sustainable economy is going to require the very best of all of us and the best and brightest minds working together for all of us. And so with that, I just want to once again thank His Royal Highness and the delegation for visiting California, for the chance to showcase the tremendous partnership and opportunities we have as a state and your nation. And I'm pleased now to hand over the virtual mic over to Ambassador Krutnes, the Norwegian ambassador to the U.S. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you, Governor Newsom, for your warm welcome. Thank you to the state of California for providing a great venue for this visit. And thank you to all of you for watching. Your Royal Highness, Lieutenant Governor, Minister, ladies and gentlemen. California and Norway are both ambitious in the climate targets. We both focus on green solutions, and we are coastal economies with similar challenges and possibilities. This visit could not come at a better time. The Biden administration has returned climate policy to the top of the agenda. Norway can bring to the table vast experience and expertise in the areas of green energy and innovative green technology. We invest heavily in carbon capture and storage. We have the world's most EV-loving consumers, and some of those EVs are made in California. I look forward to the 2 days ahead of us. There will be many opportunities for fruitful dialogue with academic institutions and business leaders. Hopefully, an even closer partnership will follow after this visit. And with that, I would like to introduce the people you have all tuned in to see today. It is a true privilege to be able to introduce His Royal Highness Crown Prince Haakon, Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, and Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs Ine Eriksen Søreide. I wish all of you the best for the visit and look forward to the discussions. Please, Lieutenant Governor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Krutnes. Your Royal Highness Prince Haakon, I am honored to join with Governor Gavin Newsom in welcoming you back to California for this 2-day virtual visit. With the aid of remarkable digital technology, it truly feels as if we are together under the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I hope that next time we will be. Your visit will be a busy and fruitful one. Today, you will be visiting 2 of California's preeminent universities, UC Berkeley, your alma mater, and mine, and Stanford University, that other school. Tomorrow, you will meet with the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, San Francisco's very own Nancy Pelosi. We will hear from Norway's Minister of Trade and Industry and Minister of Petroleum and Energy. Finally, there will be 3 exciting and informative panel discussions featuring some of our state's leading environmental officials and experts from Norway to talk about opportunities for further cooperation. We in California are honored by your presence and are proud of our deep and long-standing ties with Norway. Your government first established a consulate in San Francisco in 1906, and California is today home to more than 400,000 Norwegian Americans, making us the #3 home state for Norwegian Americans after Minnesota and Wisconsin. Norwegian Californians have made immeasurable contributions to our state and to our nation, including Earl Warren, the son of Norwegian immigrants, who is the only person elected 3 consecutive times to serve as California's governor. Governor Warren went on to become one of our country's most respected Supreme Court Chief Justices. As Governor Newsom has mentioned, Norway and California share many of the same attributes and values. We are both West Coast states. We both have relied in the past on petroleum to power our economies, but are now leaders in the development of alternate energy technologies. Recognizing the need to combat climate change, Norwegians have always been the explorers of new frontiers, as are Californians. We are indeed natural partners. Your Royal Highness, while recognizing that you are the Crown Prince of Norway, you are also a graduate of UC Berkeley. So we would like to claim you as a son of California as well. In that spirit, allow me not only to say welcome, but rather to say welcome home.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much. We very much appreciate that you are hosting us for this virtual visit to California. As you know, I very much like spending time in California from my days at the university there and also many visits after that. I think this is a great time for cooperation between Norway and California and how we can deepen that cooperation in many different fields, such as technology. Just look at where we're sitting right now and how we can communicate even though we are far away from each other. I wanted to just take the opportunity to express our sincere sympathies for the COVID pandemic and the consequences in California and in the United States. It's been a tough time. One of the things that does make me hopeful, though, is the way that we have responded to the crisis, because now we see vaccine rollout only 1 year after the virus started spreading, a little bit more than 1 year, and the rollout is very big, bigger than any time in history, this vaccine rollout. So I think we need that form of cooperation between different sectors and across borders to solve these common challenges that we have. And maybe we can apply some of that energy and that way of, leading forward and really finding ways and solutions also for some of the other pressing issues that are facing us, such as climate change. The way forward to a more green, sustainable future. That is a big part of this program, the next couple of days. So, Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to this visit.
Well, Lieutenant Governor... Thank you, Prince Haakon.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant
Madam
Governor.
Foreign Minister Sarita, we are also very pleased to have you visiting our Golden State today. A major focus of the visit will be on the environment and business opportunities, but California and Norway share more than 2 of the world's most beautiful coastlines. As Governor Newsom has said, we share a common outlook and aligned values. As a former U.S. ambassador in Europe, I can say with authority and great conviction that California has and always will remain one of your most committed transatlantic partners. We are deeply honored that you accompany the Crown Prince to our Golden State.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for the very warm introduction. And I can say on behalf of the Crown Prince and myself, we have been looking forward to this trip for a long, long time. And it almost feels like we have a bit of butterflies in our stomachs because we're traveling to the Golden State. We have been looking forward to meeting with you, to joining forces with you, and also to have a lot of Norwegian and American companies present. That's something that we really appreciate. And I have to say that this year, I think all of us have seen as the year of transition being the norm. And for us, it was no better place to go than to California, because we know very well how much you are into transition the same way as we are. We have so many partnerships that we already have dating back many years. Many of them can be forged even further, and we are so much looking forward to how we can work together on everything from policies to innovation and technology. So we are honored that you are receiving us, and we are looking so much forward to these 2 days.
Well, it really is wonderful to be together. And this morning, we're going to talk about 3 very important issues. We're going to talk a little bit about climate. We're going to talk about education. And we're going to talk about business cooperation. I'd like Crown Prince Haakon just to reflect for a moment on what you said about being a year in to COVID and having vaccine distribution moving along at such a steady clip. It is important as we look at our challenges, as we look at what we hope to achieve, that we also recognize those moments and reflect on what we are capable of and what we have been able to achieve by working together. So starting with climate change, because we really do have so much that we have done together and that we can do together, I might just start by noting that, you know, climate change for Californians is truly a threat that we live with every day. Over the last 10 years, we've had wildfires that have been unlike any in our state's history. And just last year, we had 4 of the 5 most devastating wildfires, which saw about 4% of California burn. This is real. We know that it is connected to a changing climate that has impacted our weather patterns, created more dry environment, led to these dry lightning strikes, in particular last year, things that we had not seen before at the magnitude. So we're very motivated, and to keep global warming down below 1.5 degrees Celsius, California has taken some significant steps. We stayed in the Paris Climate Accord during the previous administration. We have continued over decades now to commit to renewable energy. The governor set new standards for the sale of zero-emission vehicles, and we are exploring and investing in offshore wind and carbon capture technologies. And the upcoming panels are going to delve into these issues, which I know that you all are exploring as well, to see how can we participate together. You know, California has proven now very definitively that we can grow our economy while reducing emissions and protecting our environment. In fact, since 2000, we have reduced emissions by 10%, while our economy has grown by 60%. And frankly, we've been very successful with using incentives to get there and working with the private sector to create the conditions where innovators and investors are ready to commit to this clean energy future. Earlier, just a few moments before we started, you had a lovely virtual meeting with the governor, and you mentioned to him something that I did not know, which is that that Norway has imported about 21,000 Teslas. Let me just say, since zero-emission vehicles are now California's #1 export, thank you. But the Tesla story in California is one that really could only have occurred here, because as it was developing from a startup to what it is today, California invested billions of dollars in low-interest loans, in grants, in tax credits, and in rebates to those who buy those cars. So this has been with intention, and all of these things are things we are proud of, and again look forward to exploring over the next 2 days how we can work together to do even more. So with that, Crown Prince, as I hand it over to you, I would be very interested in hearing your perspectives on the policies that Norway is advancing to deal with the existential threat posed by climate change.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you for those very insightful comments. Climate change is a threat that you say, as you say, is facing us all. And Norway is, of course, working both nationally and internationally to do our part in combating climate change. And we'll get into some of the details of that, but I wanted to just first focus on the collaboration part of it, because we really need to work together in order to find solutions on all different levels. One example is, of course, President Biden's Climate Leaders Summit last week, where our Prime Minister also participated. But we need the collaboration on all different levels. And I think now with this visit to California is also an opportunity to push the agenda forward and find new ways and so to cooperate and new solutions. So I think we need to expand our cooperation whenever we can. It's a good thing for California and for Norway, I think. We have this, California is well renowned for this entrepreneurial spirit, for innovation. So we are very much looking to learn from California's experience when it comes to developing all these amazing technologies. We are hoping to build on the already really good relationship between California and Norway. Of course, California has been a testbed for many different initiatives that have impacted the world greatly. Of course, for one thing, you've focused very much on solar energy, renewable energy. You have been a pioneer when it comes to autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars, big data, artificial intelligence. All of these things have real impact on the world. So it's important for us to learn from you, and hopefully we can also find ways of contributing. There are hundreds of Norwegian companies and Californian companies that are following us right now, and hopefully they can find together and find ways of working together. Yes.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, if I may just add a couple of points. I'm tempted to say welcome back to the Paris Agreement for the rest of the U.S. I mean, we've been cooperating on this very closely ever since 2017, and we've been very much embracing the fact that the U.S. is now back in the Paris Agreement. And I cannot underline this enough, but you know, as a former ambassador as well, how much international cooperation means also in a European context. And we have said very explicitly that we need American leadership on this task. If we do not have American leadership on this task, it's going to get much more difficult to actually push the Paris Agreement through. So that you have now rejoined is just amazing. And our Prime Minister, everyone has been embracing that very, very clearly. And I think that what we have seen over time, at least in the Norwegian experience, and I think it's very much the same with California, that we have to do a mixture of things. As the Crown Prince just said, we need the international collaboration very strongly. Otherwise, we're not able to do things by ourselves. I mean, we're too small to do that. But we also need our national policies. So what we have been trying to do is a combination of, first and foremost, developing technology and innovation. We have a lot of, I would say, exquisite technology environments that do a lot of things that are, I would say, very high-tech and very innovative compared to what they used to do 10 or 15 years ago. In addition to that, we have been focusing a lot on using a combination of incentives, like with the electric vehicles. There are enormous tax incentives, but it's a point of doing that because we want to change the behavior of people. Buying electric cars is now seen as not something very strange, but something very natural to do. And secondly, we have a high price on carbon. We're taxing carbon high. And that also gives a lot of incentives for environmentally friendly activities. And it also means that those who are polluting will also be paying for that. So it's a combination of things. And I think that we have much the same experience that you have made over time. And that is why I think the potential increased collaboration between California and Norway can only have very good results. I'm always optimistic.
Well, I think you have good right to be, and it is wonderful, Madam Foreign Minister, to hear you talk with really well-deserved pride in Norway's visionary approach coming from the oil production history of your country and your geology and your location, and having the financial resources as you do with the, what is it we would often say about Hungary when I was at the State Department? You punch above your weight because of the extraordinary economic success of your country, but also because of the visionary approach that your people take. And that is, I think, a good segue into our next topic, which is education. You know, I am heartened by the young people of America who overwhelmingly recognize that climate change is real, and it is, I am disappointed that we have had to overcome this to the degree that we have had to overcome it, just up to the last administration. But when I look to the future and ensuring and knowing that the United States will be there to work with our allies and partners in the world on this important existential threat, that it's future generations who will carry the torch. And in our country, the next generation is already there. So as you know, we're very proud in California of our system of public and private higher education. In public education, we have 3 million students currently enrolled in public higher education in the state of California, between our community colleges, our University of California system, which of course is a research university system, and our state university campuses, which is actually about twice the number of campuses and students as the UC. All of this together gives us the platform to be able to prepare the workforce of the future. And California's economic success has been largely driven by preparing the workforce of the future through our system of public higher education. I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize that California is home to 3 national laboratories here. And when I visit those laboratories, which I have, and I meet the younger members of the research teams, and they could be engaging in research on a very wide variety of issues, it always comes back to climate change as, for them, the great challenge that they want to participate in solving, but also, of course, recognizing as young scientists that it is critical that we do. Crown Prince Haakon, I would love to hear how Norway's universities are shaping and planning for the future as well.
Thank you. Yes, I think Norwegian universities are, doing many different things. One is of course to look at partnerships between the education system and business and the workplace, where their students are going to after they are finished at the school. But I think also the same goes for the educational system in Norway, that preparing for the future, in preparing for the future, we need to cooperate internationally. Because if we're only in our own bubble, we're not going to be prepared for the future. As you mentioned, Lieutenant Governor, I myself was studying in California and have studied abroad, and I think that is that exchange of ideas, that we cooperate across borders, and that we have this flow of knowledge where we can learn from each other, that will drive innovation. And we need that innovation to solve tomorrow's challenges, and today's challenges for that matter. So, collaboration between our research and academic communities is vital in this regard. And I think also your point about young people is very valid. We see that young people are taking leadership on how we are to meet the challenges that are facing us. We don't have to explain to young people that climate change is happening. They already understand that. So the next generation is pushing us. Many of them are students, and I think we need to listen to them, because they have a lot of good points, and they want things to speed up a bit. So it's important for us who are a bit older to actually listen to them, I think.
Well, I think that the Crown Prince has a very valid point. point in the partnership between academia, of course, research and business. I think we have a lot to learn from California when it comes to the partnership between universities and businesses. And the research communities in the universities are very often in the driving seat for the change and the innovation that is needed to make that transition possible, that green transition possible. And it's been amazing to see when we prepared for this visit, when we sat on the plane coming to California, we read our files, and what we found was quite amazing to me, that first and foremost, there has historically been a lot of exchange between Norwegian universities and Californian universities on the research side, but also when it comes to venture capital, which is needed by Norwegian companies. So many Norwegian companies who have made great success have actually come to California to seek venture capital. And I find that quite amazing because the distance is quite long, but I think they do it mainly because they find that in California, the environment or the climate for doing business and innovation is just very, very strong. So it's, it's amazing to see how that collaboration has been pushed forward by very innovative and very good businesses, researchers, and universities.
Well, Madam Minister, I think you are exactly right. It's the ecosystem of all of these things together that created Silicon Valley. When I was serving in Europe, people were asking all the time, how does California do it? How is it that this extraordinary place in the world has emerged? It is an ecosystem created by a confluence of those three things: education, our university systems, the professors and the students who make up that piece, government facilitating the environment for innovation to have that fertile ground to attach to, and then of course the private sector, which creates not just the structure of those businesses, but also, as you noted, access to capital, which is critically important. And I think also, again, Madam Minister, you have set us up with a great segue into our final point of conversation for this session, and that really has to do with business cooperation on green recovery. And just to kind of set the table a little bit for everyone watching about the magnitude of what California has been able to offer to the world in terms of being a center for innovation. There are a couple things. One is that just as we sit here, we are less than 30 miles away from the headquarters of Google, Facebook, Apple, Twitter, and countless other companies. We are #1 in the country for access to capital, but it is by a magnitude of three times greater access to capital in the state of California than the second largest state in that category. And just last year alone, California entrepreneurs, and that includes entrepreneurs who come here from around the world to invest and start their companies, California entrepreneurs received about $67 billion in venture capital funds. So there's a reason why young entrepreneurs come from around the world, that access to capital, that access to the trained workforce and the experts in our universities, again, Stanford and Berkeley here in Northern California in particular, but others as well. And then, of course, the environment that is very welcoming here. In fact, I say almost every day, I note that we are 27% foreign-born in the state of California. More than 1 out of 4 of us was born outside of the country and is an immigrant to the United States. And that has made us more innovative, more creative, created a richer society and a stronger economy. And then, of course, we are also California's largest consumer market. And this is really important because when Governor Newsom, as he did a few months ago now, signs an executive order saying that by 2035, all the new cars sold in our state will be zero-emission vehicles, knowing full well that the culture of our state will support that up until 2035 and beyond. What that means is that this consumer market is going to need not just zero-emission vehicles that are available to buy, but zero-emission vehicles that they want to buy, which sets off a race to the top for the best zero-emission cars that people really are attracted to and want. It creates that market. So that, of course, then creates a market, creates a product that the rest of the world can enjoy as well. I want to, though, also segue a little bit into wind. You know, maybe we should, why don't we break this topic up? Why don't we talk a little bit about just sort of the environment for business cooperation between the two of us, and then let's circle back and I'll dive in a little bit more on wind, because I'm quite interested in what I've already learned in preparation as I was waiting for your airplane to arrive, what I've learned about the potential for cooperation in wind. So back to you, Crown Prince.
I think maybe the Foreign Minister have a few comments on this topic.
Well, thank you so much. And when, of course, when we landed and when we got off the plane and met you, we, of course, wanted to discuss these enormous business opportunities. And we have some very, I would say, both large and also innovative ideas and also developments of business cooperation. One of the things when it comes to wind that is especially interesting in my opinion, and I think it says a lot about development and how research and business together can find new ways, is that what used to be, I would say, the old oil offshore installations, much of the same technology is now used to offshore wind parks. And I think it's quite amazing to see that transition taking place. It's economically viable, it's environmentally very sound, and it has the future in it in a way that I don't think anyone imagined only 10 or 15 years ago. And here we have Norwegian companies at the forefront. We have a project outside of New York, which is called Empire Wind. When it's finished, it's going to power 1 million households in New York, which is quite amazing. And that's only one project. There are plenty of others as well. But I think on that particular point, it is very important that the cooperation that we have is still, I think to reach the Paris goals, I think we need a combination of two things. We need both a very good cooperation, but also a healthy competition in a way. As you said with the electric vehicles, the market is working. It's just pushing the technology forward, because this is something that the market wants and needs, and that's where things are, in my opinion, also moving at the fastest pace at the moment.
Floating wind power generation is something that is very much a focus in Norway right now. If we're able to make that technology mature a little bit more, it can be actually quite competitive. And of course, California's coastline is vast, and you have a quite deep seabed not far from the coast. So having these floating installations could actually be something that could work well in California as well. We have been operating, these floating wind turbines for more than 10 years in Norway. And right now we're building the largest one in the world in the North Sea. High wind Tampen. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we can find ways of cooperating to move that technology forward, because that would really be a game changer in renewable energy. I wanted to also touch a little bit on zero-emission transport at sea, because that's also something that a lot of Norwegian companies are working really hard on. As you know, we are a maritime nation, and zero-emission transport for people and goods have been something on the ocean as we've been working on that for quite a while. Right now, already about 1/3 of our domestic ferries are electrically powered, and we are hoping, our goal is that by 2030 we will halve the emissions from both our domestic shipping and fisheries. So that is a big goal, but we're working hard to get there. Also, I would like to mention this vessel called Yara Birkeland. It's owned and operated and developed by Yara. We can actually see it coming through the Golden Gate Bridge here, I think. Hopefully, it's working. If it's working, this is a cargo ship, and it's trying to solve two big issues at once. One is autonomous navigation, so that it will actually be able to navigate itself without anyone on the bridge. And secondly, it's zero emission, so it's fully electric. And if we can make that happen with a cargo ship, then hopefully we can make that technology spread around the world. So that's something that is very interesting, and I'm following quite closely. I think it's interesting to see how they will do when they're developing this technology.
Most definitely.
Well, over the next day and a half, we're going to be hearing from a lot of experts on both sides of the Atlantic, talking about the incredible advances in technology that are already sailing the seas, and ways that Norwegian experts and companies can work with California companies to advance our mutual goals. You know, one of the other things we will, I think, be hearing about is your incredible work in and around innovation on carbon capture and storage, something that's going to be absolutely essential for keeping global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And again, this wind issue, which I will say has really emerged, I think, as probably the most present area of cooperation. The Biden administration has announced a goal that the United States will have 30 gigawatts of electricity coming in generated in our country through offshore wind. You are building this extraordinary facility off of New York. Isn't that amazing? 1 million homes will be powered by the wind turbines that you're installing in New York, off of New York. You know, and one thing I think people should know is that because of the curvature of the Earth, as we're looking at offshore wind off of California, we can set them far off enough that they're not visible. So that's something I just wanted to say for folks, lest they be concerned that somehow our views of the Golden Gate Bridge or our views of the beautiful Pacific Ocean would be marred. This can be done in a way, working with the Department of Defense, with fisheries, with everyone who uses our beautiful coastline and enjoys our beautiful coastline in a way that will be all upside. One of the big challenges that you noted, which is why wind turbines have advanced in being installed on the East Coast, but not so quickly on the West Coast, is that we have a very, very deep continental shelf. We can't really, as a practical matter, install wind turbines in the Pacific Ocean by anchoring them directly into the ground. They have to have this floating technology. So Norway is way ahead in the world in developing this technology. It makes me very excited because we're talking about this in Zoom meetings all over the state right now. What more can we do to help create that environment for offshore wind? But truly, there is a vision that is created by all of this, between Norway and California's cooperation and our shared vision, that will allow future generations to live in a world that is not primarily driven by fossil fuels. And that is very, very heartening. Crown Prince, do you have any sort of final thoughts to wrap this up?
I wanted to thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I think this was a really fruitful exchange, and it's great to be back in California. I think we have a fascinating and interesting program the next couple of days. So I wanted to thank you again and invite you to Norway. It would be great to see you here, hopefully in real life, you know. Actually come. It'd be very nice to have you on this side of the ocean as well.
Well, thank you. That is an invitation that I will cherish. And, you know, I recently watched this series that took place in Norway, Occupied. I understand that was very popular in Norway and well known in the world. But it certainly made me want to come and visit our friends in Norway. So very gracious of you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, Lieutenant Governor,
Minister?
Well, thank you so much for joining us and inviting us. It's been really a very, very good exchange. And just like the Crown Prince, I would love to see you in Norway and to see some of the enormously well thought of technology and everything that we have to offer and cooperate on. So I'll be very, very happy if you could come to Norway as well. And this has been a good start of our two-day journey. I would just like to, just as a closing, turn to something else. I want to introduce a young, extremely talented artist from Norway. In 2014, she won Norway's Got Talent, but she also made quite a mark when she participated in America's Got Talent, The Champions in 2020. So here she is from her studio in Los Angeles with her version of Michael Jackson's Heal the World.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be part of the first virtual royal visit from Norway to California. Now more than ever, we need cooperation and innovation to find solutions to our common challenges. Thank you. There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. In this place, it was brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you will feel there's no hurt or sorrow. There are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a little space, make a better place. Heal the world, and make it a better place. For you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. If you want to know why, there's love that cannot lie. Love is strong, it only cares of joy for giving. If we try, we shall see. In this bliss we cannot feel fear or dread. We stop existing and start living. Then it feels that always it loves enough for us growing. Make a better world. So make a better world. Heal the world. Make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. For you and for me.
Now we will travel virtually to the University of California, Berkeley. His Royal Highness will meet with students in Berkeley's surroundings. First, we give the floor to Professor Robert Strand and Professor Trond Pedersen.
Welcome to the University of California at Berkeley. I'm Trond Pedersen, professor here, the Executive Associate Dean of the College of Letters and Science, and the Academic Director for the Norwegian Peter Sæther Center for Advanced Study. In the next 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you about 3 deep ties Norway has to this university. The first deep tie, founding of the university. The Norwegian Peter Sæther was born in Odal, Norway in 1810, came to the US in the 1830s, became a key founder of UC Berkeley in 1868. Behind me, you see a picture of the main entrance to the university, the Sæther Gate, and above it, the main landmark on the campus, the Sæther Tower, both named after the Norwegian Peter Sæther. You can learn more about Peter Sæther by reading the biography, The Immigrant and the University, by the Norwegian author Karin Sveen. His picture you find behind me. Second deep tie, Norwegian visiting students at UC Berkeley. Norwegian institutions of higher education send many students to UC Berkeley for studies of 1 or 2 semesters, where they take classes at the master's and bachelor's level here. They return to Norway, finish their degrees there, but part of their degree consists of the classes taken here. Since 2005, 2,781 such students have come here. A picture of some of them you find behind me. The third deep tie, the Peter Sæther Center for Advanced Study. Professor Liv Dusund at the University of Oslo completed the work with establishing the center in 2011. The center opened in 2012. This is a research collaboration between faculty at 8 Norwegian institutions of higher education and faculty at UC Berkeley, also engaging students at the master's and PhD levels as well as postdocs. In the last 8 years, it has funded 222 collaborative research projects spanning all fields, from humanities, social sciences, business, education to natural sciences, biology, engineering, and the arts, as well as other fields. It has resulted in hundreds of publications and millions of dollars of additional funding. The center engages in many activities, including arranging workshops, seminars, data collection, data analysis, experiments, as well as co-publishing and co-authoring. The picture behind me is from a meeting at the center. You are all welcome to come visit us here at the UC Berkeley. In the meantime, thank you so much for your attention.
I'm Robert Strand with the University of California, Berkeley. Our Norwegian roots indeed run deep here at UC Berkeley, with the legacy of Peter Sæther and the continued fostering of the Norwegian connections through the wonderful Peter Sæther Center. And we celebrate our Norwegian roots and leverage them as a resource as we turn attention to our present challenges and building a sustainable future together. Now, I'm presently working on the book, Sustainable Vikings, What the Nordics Can Teach Us About Reimagining American Capitalism. And I use my book in all the courses that I teach here at Berkeley, at the undergraduate, MBA, and executive MBA levels, each of which is titled Sustainable Capitalism in the Nordics. Now, in a moment, you'll meet a couple of our wonderful students that I've had the privilege to have in these courses. And the interest of our students to look to Norway and the Nordic countries to build collaborations to address our greatest sustainability challenges is absolutely phenomenal. It represents such opportunity for us. So I am excited to share that we have committed ourselves to establish the Nordic Center at UC Berkeley, to live alongside the Peter Sather Center and further expand and grow our ambitions to build strong partnerships between California and the Nordic region to address our greatest sustainability challenges together. Now, I'm excited and proud to now turn it over to our wonderful UC Berkeley students and for them to welcome back His Royal Highness to the great University of California, Berkeley.
Hello and welcome, Your Royal Highness. Myself, Chloe, and Peter are really looking forward to this conversation today about sustainability, what the future holds. But before we get into all of that, we just wanted to give you a big Bay Area welcome and are excited that you're joining us virtually today at your UC Berkeley campus. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Madeline. It's so great to be back on campus, even though it's virtually this time. And I'm very excited to hear more from the three of you who are experiencing student life right now in a time that's very different from when I was there. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you. So maybe we can start out by the three of you saying a little bit about yourself. What are you studying? Where would you like this to go? What type of career would you like to have? And what are you passionate about? Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, I can start us off and then pass it around, but I'm Madeline Wong. I am a third year at Berkeley studying business administration and environmental economics and policy. And my time at Berkeley, I've been working on trying to institutionalize environmental justice education within the business space because we're supposedly the next business leaders and conventional business models are not necessarily doing so great for our planet and for people. And so I'm really hoping that by institutionalizing that kind of environmentalism into our business curriculum, that business leaders will go out and have inclusive, equitable, sustainable, circular mindsets as they go into whatever profession that is. And for myself, that's looking this summer as a sustainability factory compliance role within the apparel industry. So that's me, and I'll pass it to Chloe.
Hi, I'm Chloe Olson, and I'm a sophomore at UC Berkeley majoring in conservation and resource studies. So I would say when looking at what I'm interested in through the lens of the Sustainable Development Goals, good health and well-being is what speaks to me the most. So I'm interested in environmental health, things like food systems, pesticides, toxic chemicals, basically things that affect us in the environment. And I want to work to ensure that people are able to live healthy lives and that we work to eliminate these toxic things that are in our food and products, and also that we work to prevent them from damaging the environment as well. And businesses play a big role in this too, in the sense that the decisions they make have social and environmental impacts on well-being. So I'm heading in the direction of sustainable business, whether that's consulting, marketing, CSR, that's going to be my focus. So I'll hand it over to Peter.
Thank you, Chloe. I'm Peter Flogren Hollevik. I'm a freshman here at UC Berkeley, originally from Norway, hoping to spend now 4 years on this fantastic campus. I study data science and environmental economics and policy, like Madeline. And I've come to the Bay Area to understand the overlapping fields of technology, and especially green technology. Where can we find tools to bring in new solutions to the greatest challenges that we face? And on my journey, I have with me a great team of collaborators from Norway, including the Norwegian startup Evoy, who I'll be collaborating with during my studies, but also afterwards here in the area.
Wonderful.
So I'm excited to be here.
And tell me a little bit about student life these days. How is COVID influencing your everyday life at campus?
Yeah, well, I would definitely say everything is on Zoom. UC Berkeley campus is closed technically, so everything, our classes, clubs, student life is all facilitated through the cameras now. Yeah.
Is it difficult?
If anybody else wants to add?
Is it difficult to keep your motivation as you are all, on video conference all the time? All your lectures are on the screen.
It can definitely be difficult at times to find that motivation, but I think knowing that we'll hopefully be back to campus pretty soon in the fall. I think that's definitely what's getting me through it, at least.
And not still having been inside of another building than the Campanile, our great tower, it is exciting as a freshman to finally be able to enter the libraries in a couple of months' time.
Yeah. And I think as all UC Berkeley students and then also alumni, we did want to turn the question back to you and ask if you had any favorite memories from living in California or just attending and being a student at UC Berkeley back in your day.
Well, I definitely loved coming to California. It was the first time I moved abroad, and I was on my way to sunny California. It's a bit colder actually in the Bay Area than what I thought, but wonderful lifestyle. It was amazing to go out. I went surfing at Ocean Beach, and I went up and down the California coast. I really enjoyed my time, but I think one of the two things I wanted to mention was the level of the professors. Like Professor Strand and Peterson that we just saw introducing us here. These very talented people having access to their teaching and have them guide you through studying is such a gift, and it was so inspirational. I thought that it was possible to go and talk to them as well. One thing was, when they were doing their lectures, but it might not be like that for you right now, but in the fall, hopefully, that will be the case. And we could go and talk to all of these amazing professors one-on-one. They were very accessible, easy to talk to, and gave all these new perspectives, which I thought was fascinating. I was studying political science, international relations, political economy, those types of things. And I would hear from an American professor about how analyzing the European Union, which was an amazing new perspective for me to see both Norway but also Europe from a different angle than what I was used to. So I found that fascinating. And also the other thing I would say that really stands out in my mind was the student population, all the other students. So many amazing, intelligent people that really were there to learn, but also to change the world. They wanted a better future for themselves and for everyone else. And that drive I really liked. And also the chaos, I guess, of sort of Telegraph Avenue and everything else there was interesting to me as well. I think the professors and all the other students were a big part of the learning experience, for sure.
Yeah, Chloe and I both took Professor Strand's class this past semester, and so he definitely has a dynamic energy that we are so excited to have in a virtual setting, but would have been definitely something we look forward to in person again. But if you have any questions for the three of us, we are more than happy to just talk about our perspective as students.
Perfect. I would really like to hear a little bit more about what drives you. And Chloe, maybe this can go to you. How do you think that sustainability affects the choices of your generation when it comes to deciding what to study and what employer to choose, what jobs how do you what type of company would you like to work for? What do you think? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I think just to start off, my generation is growing up in a world where climate issues are getting increasingly dire. And we are going to have to bear the worst of the impacts in the future and the generations after us. So I think just in general, we are acting with a sense of urgency, and we know that we need to act now and that our decisions matter. And the thing is, climate change is not somewhere off in the future. It's happening right now. And we can see that, for example, with the fires in California. And they've become so extreme, and in large part that is due to climate change. and they have become so regular that we have a fire season. And things like smoke and air quality are just so dangerous. And I know that for me, I've really taken for granted being able to breathe clean air, but that's just not a given anymore. And so I think there are things that are happening on a much worse level as well. Like people being forced to evacuate from their homes, not knowing if they'll ever be able to come back to them again, and people have lost loved ones. So it's something that's affecting people on just all different kinds of levels. And I think specifically for students, it's impacted whether or not we can have classes, whether or not we can walk around on campus and see our friends. So for young people specifically, and specifically in California too, fires are something that signify that climate change is happening right now. And another issue that speaks to young people, and me in particular as well, is food systems, and in particular food waste. And we waste so much food. I mean, in developed countries, basically we waste half of the food that's produced for consumption. And that waste goes into landfills, and what many people may not know is that this food being in landfills leads to increased greenhouse gases. But we have another problem as well, which is food insecurity and hunger. And in California alone, 1 in 4 Californians are food insecure. But at the same time, we have an opportunity here, because by addressing food insecurity and hunger, we can at the same time work to eliminate greenhouse gases or decrease them if we're able to prevent that food from going into landfill and waste and redirect it into the hands of those that need it the most. So I think that this interconnectedness of issues is something that's really important. And even in class, we learned about how the Nordics have this certain mindset when it comes to problem solving, like this systems thinking approach. I think that is so important, especially for solving issues on a large scale, like climate issues. It's something that the US can definitely learn something from. But I think just in going back to climate issues and to food-related issues, there's something that affects virtually everyone. And young people in particular, we see at the forefront, demanding a transformation of our food systems. But I think, I guess kind of tying it back to your question, there are so many areas of sustainability that people can go into, and everyone can really find something that speaks to them, I think. And people can go, they can study this, they can make this their careers, and fortunately, we are seeing a lot of people choose to make sustainability their area of focus. But I think more than that, when we're out looking for a job or trying to figure out what classes to take, I think that all of us, what we have in the back of our minds is that we are really finding purpose in working towards building a more sustainable and better future for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that as well is really important, what you're touching on there, that young people want to work for an employer that is actually doing something to improve the state of the world. So that sense of purpose, I think, is really important. And that's a huge impact as well if a whole generation are looking for, the best companies that are doing a good job on those types of issues, no matter what line of work they are actually doing. Thank you, Chloe. I wanted to ask you as well, Madeline, what do you see as the most important thing or some of the most important things that the world needs to do now, the next 5 years?
Yeah, I definitely think this is a really big question to answer. And when I think about the next 5 years and how immediate climate action needs to be, I think everybody has a role to play in this, and whether it's through government regulation and policy, we learned in Robert's Nordic class, and how we can compare California policy, US policy to the Nordic regions, what we're seeing government officials do, businesses doing their due diligence, really being able to go beyond just job creation creation, but actually looking at the environmental, social impacts that they're having on the communities that they most affect. And then on an individual level too, like all of us have voices that we want to use, whether that's through activism, community organizing, or like inner purchases, like our consumer power. And then along with like NGOs who are pushing businesses to be better and to do the work that they say that they're doing. And so I think when it comes to the the whole global community and the next 5 years, I think everybody has a role to play in that. And the most immediate things that come to mind that have been top of mind for me at least are the issues of building out the infrastructure for circularity to really become a reality, because historically we've had a lot of companies and consumers just like following this traditional line of creating new products, making them, and then throwing them out. And I think when it comes to where I see infrastructure coming into place, like businesses really taking the initiative first to create products that are designed to last, that have programs that are able to take those products and then remake them and make sure that they have their full life cycle. But then on top of that, like not putting consumers in the place where they have to take a lot of time, energy, resources that some people might not have to make sure that those items don't end up in landfill. And so I think when it comes to infrastructure, like creating those systems so that individuals are able to actually contribute to the circular system and not just be forced to throw things away when things inevitably break, but that we have this consumer shift too of meeting businesses who have circular products and being able to create those systems and have that support outside of just what each individual has. And then I think there's also pressing issues of fossil fuels and our energy consumption, and maybe that's something we talk about a little bit later too, but really being able to identify points where we see massive corporations contributing to our carbon emissions and being able to tackle that as well, because yeah, we really don't need to be pulling out more fossil fuels from the ground. But that's my short answer of some of the things that come to mind first. But yeah, thanks for asking.
That was a quite impressive answer. I really agree with you on the circular economy. I do think that it's vital that we get this cradle-to-cradle thinking, where we produce something, we need a plan for the life of that product, but also to use all the different parts that go into that product and reuse them again and make new products. And that's really important thinking before you design the product in the first place. I really think that's important, what you're touching upon there. So one of the big themes also, in addition to what we've talked about already, which is combating climate change and the environment and technology, is actually international cooperation, also on the educational side. So I wanted to turn to you, Peter, and ask you, one, what do you think do you think it's important that we have international cooperation in education? And secondly, what's your experience? Because you have already gone to another country and studied there. So maybe you could give us a little bit of insight.
Thank you for the question, Your Royal Highness. Those are two really, really interesting questions that I spend a lot of my time really reflecting upon and trying to understand. And as Chloe and Madeline mentioned today, we are facing issues on a global, international scale that require solutions where big groups of people, diversity of thought are brought together, discussed, understood, and with the goal of solving these great challenges. And with the tool of international education and international collaboration, I strongly do believe that we can bring upon the playing field in deciding who can be the decision makers in the future. Who are we letting sit around the round table when we're facing difficult challenges, and what kind of opinions are we opening up to everyone? And I think, looking back at my personal educational experience, I've had these kind of discussions on our greatest challenges, and I do believe it's climate change. That's the greatest, absolute greatest challenge of our generation. And coming from Norway, coming from the west coast of Norway, I've come to realize that I do have some biases. I have a set of values and backgrounds that I've brought from back home. And one great example of this is when I had a conversation on sustainable development and the building of solar panels. And I argued that this is a fine invention. We should just use this everywhere in the world. It's totally doable, together with a Swede, a Czech, and a Palestinian. And I assumed our coming from the same educational background but from different countries, I did assume everyone to agree upon the fact that this is a fantastic thing, and I still do believe so. But seeing that they might also bring different opinions on the discussion table, seeing how understanding the international feasibility, the challenges that other countries might face in implementing them, the advantages to implementing in other places, using the international educational setting as a tool to bring people around that round table and discuss ideas like that is something I really value with international education. So I don't know if that answered your first question, your Royal Highness.
Well, it sounds like you really think it's worthwhile going to a different place in the world and meeting people from around the world while you are getting your education. And I must say, was that fair, would you say? Is that your opinion?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's truly my opinion. So getting diversity of thought on the table, bringing people from different backgrounds when we're facing difficult challenges.
Yeah, exactly. I very much had the same experience when I was at Berkeley, because I think I had a little bit of a naive view of if we could only understand each other, we would not have conflict. We would find the one solution, the one common ground. And I really liked that that was challenged. I still believe, like you, I still have the same sort of notion that that is true, but it is difficult and it is complicated, and we need to understand the nuances and other people's perspective. So that sort of whole idea of the complexity, but at the same time to continue to have that same goal and the same drive to find solutions, but understanding that it's not only for other people to think the same way that I do and then it's all solved. The other perspectives are actually quite have a lot to them as well. So I thought that whole experience really was something I learned a lot from when I was at Berkeley. So I
sure do agree.
One of the, I think, Chloe and Madeline, one of you are also planning on going abroad, right, to study. Is that true?
Yes. Yes, this summer I'm planning on going to Copenhagen to study biodiversity, and then after that, Iceland to study renewable energy.
Wonderful. And why are you doing that? What's the driver for going abroad?
Yeah, I definitely agree that there is so much value in having a diversity of opinions and having new ideas presented to you. I am really excited not only to see a new country, but to study new ideas like biodiversity and geothermal energy. Those are things I haven't studied in depth, but I think having that perspective from another country can add something that studying in America probably wouldn't give me as much.
And on that note, I did want to add, Chloe's talking about biodiversity really quickly, and I just wanted to touch on how I think it's Indigenous people make up 5% of our population, but are protecting over 80% of our biodiversity is the last statistic that I read. And just thinking about all of these topics, new ideas, things that we didn't know before, I think coming to Berkeley, I really learned a lot about environmental injustices, how Indigenous communities, BIPOC, people of color, are at the forefront at a lot of these issues. And when we typically think about environmentalism, a lot of the time, people are assuming that, oh, it's like this white narrative of environmentalism, but I do think, yeah, recentering and like this importance of environmental justice that we're trying to bring into our education at Berkeley is really important, because that's really where we're also able to learn a lot, like from these international studies, but also like refocusing back on the people who are protecting our planet and doing a lot in that area. So just wanted to recenter that.
Making sure that everyone has a say at the round table. And I do believe, just finishing up the original question from His Royal Highness, I do believe that international education, or the educational setting, is a magnificent tool of bringing those diversity of thoughts and facing those challenges. And if you don't mind, Your Royal Highness, I'd really like to ask you a question. Knowing that you studied at Berkeley, I would love to hear your perspective on how international educational institutions like Berkeley could be drivers in catalyzing the sustainable future that we're seeking ahead.
Well, I personally, like some of you have mentioned already, I do believe that everyone has a role to play. And of course, when you're at Berkeley, at one of the finest learning institutions in the world, right, you're in such a great position to actually make a change. And the choices that you make, both in what to study, where to put your energy, and how to what choices you make for your career in the years ahead is really going to make quite a bit of difference. So I think it's amazing that the three of you are so focused on these issues, because obviously it's something that the world needs. And I think I touched upon it earlier, but those the thought that, or the experience at Berkeley made me understand some of the complexity of the world, but still that it's possible. But we need to combine sort of that passion with a bit of humility. I think that's a good recipe for making a lasting change. So that sort of balance is pretty much something that is needed in all parts of life, and this is one of yet another example of that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of interesting discussions today, and we're able to unlock some new doors when it comes to thinking about our future. But I did want to just address that we are running short on time, and we always have so much to talk about and not enough time to do so. But we wanted to close with asking you how your experience as the Goodwill Ambassador through the UN, how that has shaped how you view environmental issues as well as other social issues all around the world.
Well, I've been lucky enough to work with the United Nations Development Programme as a Goodwill Ambassador for 18 years now, since 2003. So you guys were fairly short at that time, I would think. Not old at all. So I've sort of moved. I did my master's degree in development studies. So, I'm very much focused on how we can improve the lives of people that are less fortunate. So we were looking at healthcare, education, inclusive pro-poor growth, gender equality, and democratic governance. All these things hugely important. And they were part of the Millennium Development Goals. So the Millennium Development Goals were these 7 goals that we had until 2015, where we actually did make a lot of progress. But in the beginning, it was a little bit controversial to talk about climate change, because it might, spur a bit of controversy and be counterproductive to helping in the situation that we were there to help, working to include the voices of those that were marginalized, making sure that people had more better health, better education, etc. But with the Sustainable Development Goals that arrived in 2015 and that are now in place as our 17 goals for 2030, the sustainability of our planet is center. So there's definitely been a development there. Some people say that there is like you have to choose, either you do development or you do climate and environment, because there are scarce resources and you have to choose what to use those scarce resources for. But I do think that we have to do both, because when we realize that we are actually part of nature, that human beings are part of nature, it becomes obvious that in order to improve the lives of people, we also need to take care of our planet and the environment. And that's, I think, more and more integrated into the different initiatives and programs that are there. So I'm very happy. I love the Sustainable Development Goals. I think they are a roadmap forward to a better future for all of us. And I think all three of you are actually doing a lot to move us in the right direction. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much for all of this. We have come to our time, but we just wanted to wish you the best on the rest of your journey throughout California and your visit to Berkeley. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. And next time I hope to come there in person and see all of you. Thank you, Madeline, Chloe, and Peter. It was great having a chance to get to know you a little bit. Good luck with your student days at Berkeley and with your life to continue from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
day.
Take care.
Bye.
California is home to a dynamic economy, the birthplace of innovation, and some of the greatest destinations on the planet. Our unique assets, the diversity of our people, our world-class higher education system, our relentless spirit of entrepreneurism, and our history of leadership are what make us one of the greatest places in the world to do business. This state consistently says yes and. It sees obstacles as opportunities and knows that we can solve the biggest challenges we face by doubling down on the notion that everyone deserves a seat at the table. We're here to help you as you create your own California dream. Thank you for your interest in the Golden State.
Days without sunlight and nights without darkness, stretching far beyond the Arctic Circle. Norway is powered by nature, and so are we. With a society that strongly believes in equality, together with free healthcare and education, everyone has the opportunity to pursue their dreams, making us the happiest people in the world. Our coastline, rivers, and fjords form the backbone of our main industries. That's why we are pioneers within marine technology, aquaculture, and energy. And all our electricity comes from clean hydropower. The future of our planet is uncertain, but we choose to be optimistic. We believe that only together we can succeed. Adapting new technology, we must strive to design greener, better, and smarter. By exploring the exceptional, we are pushing for a new standard.
We are pleased to welcome His Royal Highness Crown Prince Haakon of Norway to Stanford University. Together with Mr. Håkon Haugli, CEO of Innovasjon Norge, we will meet Dr. Tine Selig. Dr. Selig, the floor is yours.
Welcome back to Stanford, Your Royal Highness and Mr. Haugli. It's such a pleasure to see you again. I wish we could be doing this in person, but this is the next best thing.
The last time we were together at Stanford, it was 2013, and you came and joined me at the D School. In fact, I have a really funny memory of having lunch with you, and you were heading off to go surfing in Santa Cruz afterwards. And I was so delighted that I got to see you again in Tromsø, where I got to work with a number of young entrepreneurs talking about innovation and doing a whole workshop together. But I don't know if you know that I've been to Norway since then. I went with my family to go find my husband's family's farm that was outside of the city of Bergen. So what a beautiful country, and I'm delighted to see you back here.
Dr. Selig, I've been very much looking forward to this segment and to seeing you again, Tina. It's been too long. You came to Norway without letting me know. Next time you have to contact me. We'll do something fun. You know, you are one of the thought leaders of the world that I really I'm interested in hearing all your new ideas, and it's a great opportunity to get an update from you here. Even though it's a virtual visit this time, we are very happy to be at Stanford and looking very much to our conversation and getting some of your updated thoughts on innovation and how we can use innovation as a driving force for positive change. So, yes.
Yes, thank you, Your Royal Highness, and thank you, Dr. Selig. I'm thrilled to be back at Stanford and to join you for this conversation. The purpose of our visit is to explore how technology can help solve some of the world's global big challenges. And I know a lot of technology companies in Norway look to California, to Silicon Valley, and to Stanford for inspiration. So I'm very much looking forward to our talk.
Wonderful. Well, there's so many new things going on campus these days. Since you visited, there are lots of new buildings, new programs, new centers. In fact, I'm most excited about a very new program that started just 3 years ago called the Knight Hennessey Scholars Program. In fact, I'm honored to be directing it with former Stanford president, John Hennessey. And what we do is we identify emerging leaders from all over the world, and we support them in their graduate studies at Stanford for 3 years. So this year, for example, we had 8,500 applications, and we selected 80 students who will be coming back to Stanford. And so for 3 years, so we'll have up to 300 students at any one point who will be in the schools of medicine and law and engineering and arts and sciences and any other discipline. And they get to know each other through this multidisciplinary and multicultural community, and we then teach them the leadership skills that they need to go out and really make a difference addressing the world's biggest problems.
You know, I went to UC Berkeley, but I have learned with the years that Stanford is doing a lot and is such an amazing educational institution, and the work that you are doing there is so interesting. I wanted to ask you just a big question to start us off. When you look at the world today with all its complexities, how do you see innovation playing? What role do you see for innovation in the world today?
Honestly, I don't think there can be anything that is more important. Look at the world right now. I mean, the COVID pandemic, global warming, issues around poverty and education. We need to work together in incredibly innovative ways to solve these very, very pressing problems. And what we're learning more than ever is that this world is so interconnected that we need to make sure that we work together. It's not enough for one country or one community to address these problems. We desperately need to use this innovation collectively to solve these problems that affect everyone. In fact, I'm wondering, from your perspective in Norway, how do you view the world right now?
I just wanted to reiterate your point about that we need to work together, and when we work together we can actually innovate more. That's exactly what this virtual visit is about, how we can connect the thinkers, the innovators and the people that are really working hard in Norway with all these amazing people in California who are doing great work. I think from the Norwegian perspective, we have a lot of the same challenges as everyone else. The pandemic that we are in the middle of right now is one example where, it knows no borders, and we need to find common solutions. And it really shows that we are connected. That goes, of course, for climate change as well. And another huge issue, which is oceans. Our oceans, unfortunately, are not healthy. And we really need to bring our oceans back into balance, because a lot of the solutions actually lie in the oceans. But we can only harvest those solutions if it's done in a sustainable way, and we are able to bring our oceans back into balance. I wanted to just mention three aspects that I think are important, three components if we are to create a greener, more sustainable future. One thing that is needed is, of course, what we're talking about in this segment, which is innovation. We need new ideas. Since the beginning of time, people have found new ways of doing things, invented new tools. The wheel was invented quite a long time ago. We're still using it every day. We need, technology to transport stuff around. The one example of how innovation has really helped in the sustainability issue is how battery technology has been developing the last year, with prices falling quite dramatically, making it more possible to store that energy and use it in a more environmentally friendly way. The second point, or the second component, is leadership. We need someone to show the way, to really point out the direction. One example of that is actually young people. Young people get this, and there's a lot of young leaders emerging focused on sustainability. So that's my second point. And the third is, of course, in addition to innovation and leadership, it's going to be hard work. Nothing of this comes without being focused and actually doing the work. We need that as well. So those are, I guess, my three components. Over to you.
Yeah, one thing that makes me really hopeful in a time where we've really been reminded of how interconnected we are and the magnitude of the issues we're facing is what we're seeing on the business side, where both new startups and established companies really tackle some of these challenges head on. We have a lot of those companies in Norway, and we also see a closer cooperation between the private and public sector than I think we've seen historically across the globe, because the recognition is there that it has to be solved in cooperation. We have some terrific examples in Norway of electric ferries, for instance, being procured by the counties, and now a large share of our ferries are electric, just to give one example. Innovasjon Norway's role is to support those companies who have the potential to create both jobs and growth while providing sustainable solutions. And here in California, virtually, and across the US, we see Norwegian companies working with American partners on major clean tech and energy projects. Aker Offshore Wind is involved in a large offshore project in California, and we on the East Coast, we see Equinor working in both New York and Massachusetts. These are topics we'll touch on tomorrow.
Tina, when you were when we saw each other last in Tromsø, you were doing this amazing workshop on innovation and how we all can become these innovative entrepreneurs if we just find the right way of thinking. And I was wondering whether maybe you could give us like a short version of that. That'd be great. Some of the key insights when it comes to innovation to share with everyone that's watching.
Great, I would be delighted to. I also want to point out that sustainability could not be any more important to our community here as well. And Stanford has just launched a brand new School of Sustainability, bringing together all those people across campus who are thinking about this important issue under one umbrella and really making it a very strong focus for the future. So this is something that everyone's thinking about, and young people are really getting prepared to address these big challenges. But of course, this all requires innovation. I mean, really looking at problems as opportunities, leveraging what you have, and coming up with some really bold solutions. And you're right. I spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about how do we prepare people to come up with more innovative solutions. And I teach classes on creativity and innovation entrepreneurship. But I realized that looking at just the tools for imagination and creativity and innovation are not enough. You need to really look at this through a much wider lens. And so this is what you're talking about what I did when I was in Tromsø with the entrepreneurs. I looked at the fact that you can look at each individual and what they individually need to have to be more innovative. They need to, of course, have these skills like how to reframe problems, how to challenge assumptions, how to brainstorm, how to come up with ideas. But this only works if you have a base of knowledge that allows you to use those tools. Your knowledge is essentially a toolbox for your imagination. If you want to come up with a flying car or a cure for cancer or a cure for COVID, you need to understand biology and engineering. And in fact, you also need to understand the whole ecosystem in order to actually make that work. So the more you know, the more you can tap into with your imagination. But there's another very important piece for every individual, and that is their attitude. Now, your attitude is the spark that gets this going. If you don't have an attitude that you can find a problem, that you can make it through hurdles, that you can overcome all the failures that are going to happen along the way, you're just going to give up. So each individual needs their imagination, their knowledge, and their attitude. But I realized that again, is not enough. You need to look at the entire ecosystem in which people work. And what is there? Well, there are three things there. There are the resources that are available, there's the habitat in which you live, and then there's the culture. So let's dive in and look at each one of those a little bit closer. We often think of resources as, money. But money is only one resource at your disposal. There is the processes you have. There's the natural resources. And of course, Norway, there are tremendous numbers of natural resources. And there's also the community that you can tap into. And the wonderful thing is that your resources, your knowledge, are directly related. Think about it. The more fish you have in your environment, the more you're going to know about fishing. And the more you know about fishing, the more fish you're going to catch. So you really have to tie into understanding what resources you have and then what knowledge you need to actually leverage them. Then you look at habitat. Well, habitat is very nuanced and very interesting. It's things like the rules, the rewards, the incentives, and even the physical space. Each of these things has dramatic impact on our imagination. Think about it. When you're in a room, okay, we're in this room here, look how beautiful it is. It stimulates our imagination. If you were to lower the ceilings, you would feel really differently. Think about being in a tiny little space versus being in a cathedral. Think of being near the ocean, or think of being in a wooded mountaintop. Each of these environments makes you feel differently and makes you respond very, very differently. Also, think about the rules and rewards. If you're living somewhere where you get punished if you make a mistake, you're not going to be willing to take any risks. But if you're in an environment where risk-taking is celebrated and you celebrate big ideas, even if they don't work out as expected, that's when people are going to come up with some really bold new thinking that maybe they wouldn't have thought of if they were in a more constrained environment. And third and finally, you need to look at the culture. I love to think of culture as the background music in any organization. And you think about it, when you watch a movie, even a commercial, the background music tells you how to feel. When you walk into any organization, you pretty quickly realize, what is the culture here? How should I behave? And that really changes everything about what you do. And so just as every individual contributes to the culture affects every single individual. And so you need to look at this innovation engine, that's what I call it, the individual, your knowledge, your imagination, and your attitude, and the outside of the innovation engine, the culture, the resources, and the habitat, and realize that each of these things dramatically impacts innovation in your community. And the wonderful thing is we each have an ability to tap into our own skills, our knowledge, our attitude to really turn on this innovation engine and really pump up creativity and creative thinking in our community.
Fascinating. So I have two questions for you. One is, do you think everyone can learn how to be an innovation entrepreneur? And secondly, do you think that your teaching applies across all cultures and disciplines? Or does it work better in some countries that are sort of liberal democracies? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love this question. So let me just answer, well, let me answer them both sort of parallel together. First of all, our students at Stanford come from all over the world, right? So they come into our classrooms and I can't even distinguish one from the other in terms of how creative they are. They're all into being creative. And what it is they come into that environment, the rules, the rewards, the incentives, the physical space, all of that, and the culture certainly leads everyone to be more innovative. Think about it. Kids are creative. I mean, I've never met a kid who isn't creative. And yet we go through school, and in so many cases, this creativity gets squeezed out of them. Why? Because they're given problems with one right answer. They're sitting in rows and columns where the chairs are bolted to the floor. And it gets really, their creativity gets squeezed out because that's not what is rewarded. So if you create environments in which creativity is celebrated and the habitat is designed to stimulate it, you're absolutely going to get more. So let me then go to the question about, is it different in different parts of the world? Well, one of my favorite examples is I went to Japan, and I don't know if you know, I wrote a book called What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20, and the book ended up becoming quite successful in Japan. And so they asked me to do a TV series in Japan. So I ended up doing a 10-part TV series, which was filmed initially at the D School at Stanford. And then they said, well, will you come to Japan and teach here? And I said, okay. The reason they said this is they said, well, this works really well with your students at Stanford and California, but it would never work in Japan. And I said, you got to be kidding. Of course it would. So they said, prove it. So I ended up going to Japan, and I did the tiniest intervention. You would have thought I was almost lazy, but I wanted to demonstrate a point. I did a 2-hour workshop with their students, and at the end of that workshop, I gave them a challenge. And the challenge was the same challenge I was giving at the exact same time to students all over the world. I decided to turn it sort of into a global experiment. I contacted my colleagues around the world and said, will you do this with your students as well? And I have to say, the students in Japan blew my socks off. And they walked out at the end saying, I had no idea how creative I was. And the reason is the environment in which they were learning was very limited. But once I gave them permission and a challenge that allowed them to tap into their creativity, it absolutely took off. So I am absolutely convinced that everyone has these skills and that they can be fostered.
Dr. Selig, I had the pleasure of watching one of your YouTube videos where you show this bottling process at a bottling company with different background music. I highly recommend the video, by the way. This point that you make of the culture being the background music of an organization, how do you find, who sets that, who puts on the music? Is it the people on the top of the organization or individuals across the organization? And related to that, how do you find that large companies deal with innovation compared to smaller ones? I mean, we often think of startups as being innovative, but if you look at larger companies, they can also be innovative, and I guess this touches the point on culture.
Right, so that's a really interesting and very complicated set of questions. Let me tackle it. So who in the organization sets the culture? Well, clearly the people who are in a more senior role, who have influence on more people, have certain levers that they have at their disposal to affect the culture. Again, it's what things are rewarded, where are the metrics for success, what's their behavior, what do they model? And then, but every single person in the organization actually contributes to that culture. And so everyone has the ability in your small team. You can start doing things that end up having a big effect on the rest of the organization. I think about at Stanford, the D School. It started out as a tiny little experiment we were started out in these double wide trailers and on the outskirts of campus, and ultimately moved into a place in the center of campus. And at this point, so many students through the university come and take classes at the D School at some part in their educational experience. Plus, faculty from around the university come and they participate in teaching classes at the D School. What ends up happening is that the culture of that D School that we started out as a tiny little group in a double wide trailer, at this point has had an enormous influence on the entire university. It didn't have to come from the top, it came from inside the organization, and because it was so successful and sticky, people have now built rooms across campus that are similar to the design of the D School. People use the terminology from the D School. It has become very much part of the entire culture. So yes, it is true that someone at the top of an organization has certain levers, but if you're in the organization, you have others. And in fact, I would even argue that someone in the organization has an interesting role because they can do it in a bit of a stealth way. They can do some experiments and do some prototypes or prototypes to try things out. And then if it's successful, other people start joining them, and it can really take root. But you ask about large versus small companies. That's also a really interesting issue. It looks like small companies can be much more innovative because they're much more fluid and the roles and responsibilities are not yet, sort of nailed down. But you're absolutely right. Large companies can do things to stimulate creativity. Sometimes they do it actually by acquisition, right? They say, okay, we're going to bring in other companies, we're going to buy them and buy innovation and bring it in. But they also can have stealth projects that they're working on. They can give big goals and challenges. They have more resources. I mean, think of a company like Google that has all of their labs where they're doing tons of experiments. Many of them fail, but some out of the ashes of some of these failed experiments result in some really interesting products that end up changing the world.
Terrific, thank you so much. We thought we'd move into the future. I guess the last couple of years have reminded us how unpredictable the future is. And could you share some reflections on how you teach students at Stanford to think about the future?
Yeah, this is something I think a lot about. In reading the paper over the last, number of years, I have been really struck by the number of companies that have been founded that go to market really fast, and all of a sudden you look up a couple years later and the impact that they've had is very surprising. And we could probably look at companies, we could name them from the front pages, where you go, wow, there is lots of unintended consequences of the technology that they've developed. So I decided to design a course called Inventing the Future. The goal was to prepare young people to look at the impact and the consequences of the innovations that they're developing. So I teach this class. I've now just finished teaching it for the third time with two colleagues, my colleague and friend Lisa Solomon, who's a futurist, and she teaches at the D School, and also a professor in the bioengineering department, Drew Endy, who is literally inventing the future right now as we speak. He brings in examples of the way that he teaches it. In fact, I want to tell you a little story. I talked to my colleague Jennifer, who runs the bioengineering department, about this class, and she shared it with Drew Endy. I had never met Drew, and he looked at the syllabus, the plan for the course, and he said, I want to teach this class too. So I invited him to join the teaching team at Sight Unseen, and he ended up being an enormous contributor because he is on the front lines of bioengineering, and he was saying this is exactly the things that he and his lab and his colleagues need to be thinking about. So how does the class work? I hope you'll come and participate, and maybe I'll get to come to Norway and try it out too, okay? what we do is every week we teach the students two things. First, divergent thinking. How do you come up with big, bold ideas? How do you challenge assumptions? How do you break the rules? How do you look at imagining the future and where it could go? We then teach them tools for convergent thinking. How do you evaluate these inventions? How do you think about them and the consequences? And then the most fun part is that every week we have a debate. And we have the students in teams, and they basically cycle through debating the utopian and dystopian consequences of different frontier technologies. It might be lab-grown meat, or mining asteroids, or designer babies, or virtual reality travel. And they walk away from this class with a lot of things. One is they are inoculated. They now know, oh my gosh, when I come up with an invention or trend, a tool, a technology, I need to really think of what the consequences are going to be, and they have tools for doing that. And they also feel a responsibility to think about these things early on in the development of a new technology so that they can be prepared to figure out how might they mitigate the problems before something terrible happens.
That sounds like a fascinating course. I would definitely like to take you up on that invitation and come and,
Great. I really do.
see what
really
you're
hope you
doing
come.
firsthand. Yes. So I wanted to just bring it back to young people as well. You're working with young people, of course, every day at D-School. But I do experience that every time I talk to young entrepreneurs that are starting their own companies, that are out there really testing their ideas for what they're worth and trying to bring them to market, I do find that there is this drive to find solutions for the challenges that the world are facing. So, and this whole sort of sustainability is integrated into most of their ideas and business strategy, really. So I think that that's really inspirational and great. There's also, I think, been a shift for the big companies. I would say, 20 years ago, a lot of the larger companies were talking about their environment and sustainability, maybe even. But now I see that sustainability is much more incorporated into their core business strategies. And I think that that's very hopeful, and I hope that we'll see a lot more of that. And part of that, I think, is driven by young people because, one, young people are taking leadership on this issue. Secondly, a lot of their employees are young people, so they're pushed from within to make these changes. Of course, also, many of the people that are a little bit older like us can also have these ideas and want to make that difference. And in addition, they need to do it to attract the right talent. Because if you choose who to work for, you want to work for the company that's actually helping the world forward. And I think, for young people, this is more like a way of life. It's a natural way, and it is, the way they live their lives. And one example of that actually was these three amazing Berkeley students that I just met with before this segment. We were talking about this, and they're doing a lot of the same things, and very focused on that. So I think this is also a great opportunity for many startups, because if you are solving a real problem, there can be a great business opportunity in that as well. So it's the logic way of doing business and building companies.
Yeah, I agree. I completely share that view. I'd also love to sign up for the class, by the way. I think just to add one additional point is that we really need these companies because they both serve the need of addressing the big societal needs, but they also create jobs, and those jobs are needed too. And it's interesting to see how that combination, so that mission-driven young workforce affects both the new companies as well as the established established companies. And in fact, this is one of the purposes of our virtual visit to California, is to make sure that we can connect businesses as well as obviously academia and politicians in terms of addressing challenges together. So we're hopeful that this is a first step in establishing some important bridges also for companies who seek to solve global challenges.
I couldn't agree more. I know that young people today are really passionate about solving environmental problems. This is why the new sustainability school at Stanford was built, and I think this is something they're growing up in a world where this problem is front and center. The most fascinating thing, though, is to see what happened with the lockdowns from the COVID pandemic, and that how quickly the environment started repairing itself. What hope that there is if that in a few months the rivers start running cleaner and the air is cleaner. This is a huge reminder that we do have control over this still, and there is time that we have to really make some dramatic changes. One of the things, though, that we have to think about is, again, think of the innovation engine. What are the rules? What are the rewards? What are the incentives? What is the culture that we want to develop that is going to allow us to make these really bold new changes? And this is something that leaders can certainly do all over the world. I mean, the wonderful thing about Norway is you have demonstrated tremendous leadership in terms of sustainability and can be a real role model for the world in terms of what can be done and the impact that can happen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Selig. This has been a very fun conversation. It was great visiting Stanford again.
Dear Tina, it's always a pleasure to spend time with you, and fascinating. I really love listening to you talk about your ideas and the way you work, and in the belief that we all have this, quite amazing, innovative person within us. We just need to get that person out. So I love listening to you, Tina. It's really great seeing you again. Thank you for the important work that you're doing, because I really think that you are shaping the future in a really positive way through all these young minds that you are influencing. And it's a really important role to play. Thank you very much for having us at Stanford, and I wish you all the best in everything you're doing at the time and in the future.
Well, I couldn't be more delighted to see you again. I hope we can do it in person. I'd love to host you on campus and to meet all of our students. I know you got to meet the Berkeley students, but I'd like to bring you back to hang out with some Stanford students. No rivalry there, of course.
That would be great, too.
It would be great. And you know what? I can't wait for my next trip back to Norway. I know it's just an incredible country, and it'll be just a pleasure to see you on one continent or the other. Thank you so much.
Please come back. Come back to Norway. Good to see you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Tina.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Wow.
Well done, Haakon. This is actually the first day of our virtual visit to California. Congratulations, you pulled it off. Well done.
Congratulations to you too, Your Royal Highness. It's been terrific. And we have another day ahead of us, which is equally exciting.
Yes, tell us a little bit about what's happening tomorrow, because there's a lot of people out there that are following now and that will also be following tomorrow.
Well, Your Royal Highness will open the day. We'll have some high-level conversations on how to translate ambitious climate targets into both jobs and growth and sustainability. And then we'll have 3 panels with both Californian and Norwegian business leaders talking about topics such as offshore wind, zero-emission mobility, as well as sustainable finance. So it should be fun and a good learning experience.
Sounds fascinating. So see you all tomorrow. That's it for today. Yeah. Good job.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I felt like she was there. Technology is amazing.
Absolutely.